Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, I've been doing a lot of internet surfing the last couple of days, and primarily on LinkedIn and on the leadership forum of Reddit. And I've noticed a lot of articles recently that use the term psychological safety. And we've talked about it briefly once or twice in the context of other episodes. We never really talked about it as its own episode, but usually when I start to see, the first time I heard the phrase at all was less than a year ago. I mean, it never, in the construct of work environment, less than a year ago is the first time I heard it. And now it seems I can't have a conversation with somebody about employee engagement or work environments or anything without it coming up. And usually when things happen like that, they become buzzwordy very fast. But the reason why they're called buzzwords is because typically they don't come with any change to the actual environment. They just come with a repetition of a word until the word actually loses its meaning, but the environment never really changed. Mm-hmm. And I think psychological safety, it has a tendency, or it can have a tendency to go down that path too. I've seen some environments already where the word is used a lot and nothing has changed. I've also seen some environments where the word is used a lot and the leadership has allowed the staff to take it to the nth degree, to the point where some people are getting away with murder at work and not being held accountable to any type of results at all in the name of psychological safety. If I make you feel bad at all, then this becomes not a psychologically safe environment. And neither is good. If you want to use a term like this, you should use it the right way. But I think that leaves a lot of leadership in a position where they don't really know how to do that. And so what I want to talk about this episode is ways that that maybe if you are a leader and you're starting to hear this term, that you can make sure that, one, you're not just talking about it, you're actually making it live within your organization, but two, that you're kind of grounded in principles around it so that your staff doesn't start to take advantage of it and think of it as a, kind of a get out of jail free card for anything I want to do, because how I feel is more important than any type of results or what the P&L statement says. So let's start there. Can you think of anything that leaders should do nowadays if they want to make sure that they have psychological safety at work, real psychological safety?
Yeah, well, when we talk about the term, the first 2 things that pop in my mind are fear and risk taking when it comes to like the work environment. And so
Sure.
kind of, the idea is, how do you have an environment where people like the feeling to take action and to put themselves out there and to show up as themselves and to provide, maybe unique ideas or thoughts and that type of thing. Like when that outweighs the fear of being quiet and not sharing those things, like that to me is when you actually have an environment, that is psychologically safe. That's
Sure.
kind of how I think about it. So the first thing that I think has to happen, and something that I'm very comfortable with, is around a vision. Like that to me is the first thing that has to happen to have an actual psychologically safe work environment, is you have to have a very clear vision. People have to understand the why. Because once they start to understand the why of why do we exist, why do we do this work, why are these things important, why does it matter that I speak up, why does it matter that we work together and collaborate as a team, as those whys start to get defined and people start to understand that there's a greater why that we're looking to achieve, then they start to really engage in the conversations. They get to become, more participants in creating strategy, implementing strategy. And that's kind of the idea, is really spending a lot of time helping people understand that there's a greater mission at hand here than just doing the task that needs to get done right now. That all of these things add up to creating a much larger vision and really people truly have an intrinsic motivation to help achieve that larger why. And I think once that happens, people are definitely more willing to take risk, share their ideas, push things forward, and even potentially share, specific negative feedback, or give a little bit of pushback, or say, hey, that sounds like a good idea, but that's not helping us achieve the larger mission, the bigger why. So that to me is the first thing I think about when we talk about psychological safety in the work environment.
I think I agree with you. But I also know of organizations out there that have missions or visions, and they're not inspiring. They're just not inspiring. So yes, I think you're right that you need to have a vision, absolutely. But it's not enough just to have one. I mean, is there a roadmap for creating a vision, or elements that the vision should have in order to make sure that it's powerful enough to make people start to feel psychologically safe?
Well, I think as a leader, and we've talked about this a little bit before when we talked about the book was like that. Some organizations have a we're going to go save the world vision.
Sure.
We're going to make we're going to have a green initiative. We're going to make diversity better. We're going to human rights. Like, they have these large visions that are by nature what they are talking about would lead you to believe that there's more inspiration there. And then you have organizations where their vision isn't so humanitarian. But that's really the role of a leader, is to sit down and think about how do you, if the vision itself from the organization isn't one that is necessarily defined, or people would think about it as an inspirational vision, a leader still controls the environment. A leader can still inspire the environment. A leader can still sit down with individuals that are there and have conversations and be really clear around what we're trying to accomplish as a team, why this is important. What are you getting out of this job while you're here? How can this be helpful in getting you promoted, or getting you experience, or building skill sets that will then provide you with opportunities to have more compensation, which will then help you feed your family, achieve personal and professional goals. So like that idea of vision sometimes is just tying it to the individual and to the team around how the work that they do collectively will help benefit all, and remind them of what the why is that they're here for. Why do you have a job? Why do you work? It's to do these things outside of work. It's to achieve these goals. It's to grow your family. It's to provide opportunities for your children that maybe you never had, or that you want them to have a better opportunity than you had. But these are also things that are the whys that will help tie what they do to even a personal vision.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And I like that you framed it in the context of the individual, because I was thinking, I think a leader can kind of create their own vision, not for the organization, but for themselves. And that can be contagious. Like when you have a leader who is always stressed out and always looks like they're focused on the numbers only, that spreads. You end up with a lot of people who will start to operate so that is the most important thing, is whatever those numbers are. But if you have a leader who operates where everything they do tends to tie into their own personal vision, and I don't just mean at work, I mean, let's say that their personal vision includes getting their degree, or going back to school, or buying a house, being vocal about the steps they're doing in order to do that. I think that can help show that the leader themselves is vision oriented, and that becomes contagious around getting people to buy in around a company vision that might not be as inspiring.
No, absolutely. I think when we talk about psychological safety, a part that people don't really talk about is that to truly have it, you have to have an environment where people are having real conversations, and they're transparent, and they're pushing back, and maybe they're not on the same page, or you have a leader who says the buzzword but they don't practice it, and then you have employees that now expect it. So like, what are your thoughts on the fact that by having an environment of psychological safety, or by trying to create one, like, what about the fact that you're going to have people that will push back on certain things, or may not agree with certain things that are happening, to try to push the organization forward?
That is a complete lack of psychological safety if a leader if their actions don't match up with their words, first of all. But I will say that I know some really great leaders that have some bad moments. I know some really great leaders who make mistakes. And an element of really testing whether or not you have psychological safety is if you welcome that kind of dissent that maybe doesn't align with you as a leader, but instead aligns with what the vision of the organization is. I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of being in a situation where what my boss and what my boss's boss is saying is the flavor of the week becomes very, very important, and I find myself making decisions that are not aligned with the company vision or mission or values because it's out of expediency or trying to satisfy what I've been told to do this week. And it was a rude awakening the first time an employee pulled me aside and challenged me and says, this has nothing to do with what you have always talked about what we should be doing. And I was embarrassed. And I'm very fortunate that the employee who did that, I had a good enough relationship with them where I didn't react the way I think a lot of leaders would react in that situation, which is to say, get out of here. Don't question me. This is the right thing. This is what I was told. I don't want to do it. And they give away their own authority. They blame it on somebody else. And instead I said, I was fortunate to say, you know what? You're right. And I went and redid the entire thing. And I pushed back on my leader at the time and said, this isn't something we should do. I can try to work it into other things that we're doing, but it can't go against what I know to be the vision and the mission of the organization. So, and I had employees at the time where if they had been the ones to say it instead, I would have reacted poorly. I would have reacted in that negative way that said, get out of here. And so, like I said, I was very fortunate that it would happen that way. But yeah, that is a really, really good litmus test for if you have psychological safety is if one of your people comes to you and tells you that what you're doing does not align with what the vision or the values or the mission of the organization is, do you take that feedback to heart, or do you push it away because the stress of having to deal with this new goal or this flavor of the week becomes overpowering?
Yeah, it reminds me of, not even if you're an employee, if you're a leader, but as a leader. Like when we talked about the culture acronym and we talked about lending air support, like I think this ties in nicely here with the idea of,
oh, sure.
Yeah, when you have a direct boss, when you're a leader of people and your direct boss or somebody who's a dotted line to you or whatever, asks you to go do something or gives a direction or wants to implement a strategy that is not aligned with the larger, organization's vision. I remember very specifically at a time when, we had people would know a term like branded payments, where you have an organization or a company that has its own credit card.
Sure.
And
everybody does.
Right, everybody. You go to Target and do you want to put this on your Target card? Right, like everybody's got one. The airlines have them. Costco has them. Everybody's got their own branded credit card. And so, for those people that don't understand, like the reason why organizations do that is because it saves them a lot of money in paying credit card fees when they have their own card. So there was a time when there was a big push to make those things happen, and there was a lot of conference calls and things like that. And I remember very specifically being on a call where there was senior leadership on the call, there was HR on the call, and they were talking about this idea of if employees didn't have X amount of these cards done in a day or in a week, how we needed to talk about accountability. And I got off that call and I immediately called the HR person that I knew that was also on the call. And I said, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely not aligned with our vision as an organization, to offer a great experience for our customers, provide them with solutions and options, and let them choose what's best for them. Because if I offer, 50 customers these things and only half of them decide they want it, how is that a bad thing? If I and my team are doing our job by offering the solution that we have, then we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. If they don't get approved or they say no, then that's ridiculous.
I'm shocked the HR person didn't push back on this on the call.
Well, me too, and that's unfortunate, right? But as you were just mentioning, sometimes that happens when it comes to, self-preservation, when it comes to navigating the political elements of these things, when it comes to pushing back, when it comes to accountability, like people are people. But that's, that was my feeling on that. But it's spot on is the fact that as a leader, that type of quote unquote dissent is needed when it's not aligned with what the organization's vision is, and what we're supposed to be doing here. And I think that if you don't do that, and you don't step out, you don't say something, then you just sign up with everybody else, and then you lose all of that respect and trust of your team, and then you just become that next flavor of the month leader. So that behavior has to be happening in certain parts of your business if you truly have a psychologically safe environment. You should expect that there will be people that would be pushing back on certain things and making sure that everybody on the team is aligned on where we're going here.
Yeah, you should want it.
Yep, absolutely.
The last element I want to talk about here when it comes to psychological safety that I think is really important, and it's a little cliche, but the concept of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you think about what's behind it, there is something ingrained in our DNA to seek safety, whatever that looks like. And so first of all, what that means obviously is that employees want a psychologically safe environment, but they will get it whether you create it or not. So a psychologically safe environment might also be one where you chastise people who take any risks, and you consistently make sure that people are towing the line. And what you're going to get is a whole bunch of people that toe the line and just do just enough work to not get fired and never take any risks at all. And that's because they will be psychologically safe whether you create an environment that welcomes risk and is psychologically safe, or that chastises risk. They're still going to feel safe, or as safe as they possibly can. And so the concept of getting people to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that you need to take away risk. I think it means you need to make sure that the risk is not in losing their job, or in losing the respect of you as their boss, or completely putting up a blockade on their career advancement path. Those shouldn't be the risks that they need to be taking. The risks they're taking, or the potential failure, needs to come from whatever idea they had not working. Mm-hmm. And if you're vested into an idea and you come up with the how-to and the implementation, and you have all this data surrounding why you think it's going to be a great idea, if it doesn't work out, that's a really tough pill to swallow. It is an impossible pill to swallow if that employee is simultaneously dealing with that and wondering whether they will ever be promoted again, or wondering if they're going to lose their job tomorrow, or wondering if they're going to get written up tomorrow for doing it. That is the kind of environment that makes them never want to take that first risk to begin with. And so I think it's important that when we talk about psychological safety, it's not eliminating the fear of failure. It's making sure that the employee knows that the failure comes from the market, or from the customer reaction or the client reaction, not from the reaction of you, their leader.
Yeah, and I think as well, when I think about the kind of the comfortable, uncomfortable verbiage, and I use it myself. I talk about leadership and saying that, like, real leadership is being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And what I mean by that is understanding that, you're gonna run across things that you've never seen before, and you're gonna be a part of conversations that you've never had before, and you want to show empathy to somebody, but you've never actually had that thing happen in your life. So how do you show empathy in a space where you can't relate to that situation whatsoever? And so I say that because it's one of those things where when you're comfortable in knowing that you don't know everything, when you're comfortable in knowing that you always have something to learn, when you're comfortable in knowing that you're going to come across things that you've never seen before, and you say, like, okay, so I've never seen this, but let me pull in some resources, let me continue, let me keep my composure, let me fall back onto the skills and the behaviors that I know will get me through this without getting flustered, without getting stressed, without projecting my fear onto somebody else, like all those types of things. That's really where I go when I think about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, is just knowing that these are things that are going to happen, and that's okay. So you're not caught off guard when you're saying, like, oh my God, so somebody wanted to talk to me, and they started talking to me about, a health situation or a personal situation, and I'm a new leader, and I don't, how do I do this? Well, that's kind of the idea, is that you should always be prepared for those things and realize that you're going to find yourself in some of these uncomfortable waters, and that's okay. And as long as you know that ahead of time and you're prepared for that, you'll be able to get through them and do it the right kind of way. And then that way, when that person walks away, they feel safe. They feel like they were able to open up, they were able to be transparent, they were able to be honest, and you didn't lose composure, and you didn't look at them sideways, and you listened, and you either provided them with a solution, or you provided them with a commitment to get them a solution. So that's kind of what I think about when in regards to the uncomfortable, comfortable thing and psychological safety.
Yeah, I'm picturing. So I fly a lot for my job. I do a lot of traveling, and something I learned many years ago was that if I'm on an airplane and there's turbulence, no matter how severe they are, the very first thing I do is I look at the flight attendant, because the look on the flight attendant's face will tell me whether or not there's actually something to worry about. And I have most of these things I've experienced several times now, so I don't even worry anymore. But every once in a while, maybe once a year or twice a year, something will happen where there's a big drop or a jolt or something like that, where it makes my heart start to go up. And I look at the flight attendants, and every single time, I've never looked at them and seen anything other than calm on their faces. Nothing ever. Sometimes they continue pouring the drinks like right through whatever happened. and I think that's I don't know whether that means that they've become really great at the concept of no matter how bad it is, that the plane could be going down, you better have a look on your face like there's nothing wrong at all, and they're just really good at it. Or maybe there actually is nothing wrong. When it comes to the work environment, I can't really think of a lot of situations where something an employee could come to you with even warrants an overreaction like that. I mean, if you think about it, at the end of the day, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Let's say what they came to you with is something really egregious. Nothing good can come of it. It's obvious in the moment that they're going to lose their job over it. It's obvious to you. There's still nothing to be gained by making that person walk out of that room thinking, oh my God, I'm screwed. There's nothing to be gained by that. You make them feel comfortable and make them understand that the world's going to go on tomorrow, and we'll deal with this together no matter what it looks like, and you appreciate them coming to you no matter what that is. There's always a way to do that. There is no situation where that isn't at least the bare minimum you can do as a leader, I think.
Yeah, I think it's great advice, and it's spot on, and I think that's really the when we wrap up kind of the conversation around psychological safety, that's the key is creating the environment where people can walk away and feel at minimum that they're heard, that they're safe, and that they understand what's going on to the best of their ability. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
Okay, for this episode's 1 minute hack, I want you to get a pen and paper, and I want you to write down a bold vision for yourself. Something that is work-related, something that you can hold yourself to, something that is not so grand that it becomes kind of all-encompassing, but something that you can look at and very specifically understand whether or not something would tie to this or not, whether something aligns with it or does not. And then I want you to find the 2 people on your team that are the most likely to be the ones to push back against anything. The ones that are constantly on the lookout for things being not aligned with whatever the company mission or vision is, the ones that might be the thorn in your side. Sit down with them with this vision that you've written down, and I want you to tell them how much you appreciate the fact that they are the ones to try to keep this team on track, to make sure that everything we do is in service of the vision. I want you to share the vision you wrote down with them, and I want you to ask for their help in making sure that the team stays aligned. Respectfully, of course, but tell them to make sure that they can come to you and they can push back if they see something that they think doesn't align with that vision. Though it will further engage those 2 employees and make them more loyal to you, and it will make sure that that they are the ones that are helping you create that environment of psychological safety, and you're not doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1 minute hack, and I really like the idea of not just doing a practice of kind of creating your vision, but including those on your team that I think would even fall somewhat into some of the dissent category, because that's kind of the idea of keeping the team aligned with the larger vision. So I think that will be really helpful in making sure that the messaging and the participation of your team members in creating this strategy and this vision kind of echoes through the culture of the team.
Yeah, the courage to speak up like that is something that not a lot of people have. Typically, it comes from employees who feel like they don't have a lot to lose. Maybe they'd be okay with losing their job. But sometimes those people, if you direct that passion in the right way, it could be an ally for you. If you don't, if you dismiss them as just the complainers, then they'll start to undermine things, sometimes intentionally, because again, they don't care if they lose their job. So engage them in what their strengths are, which is that no fear kind of mentality, and put it to good use.
Yep, sounds good. And with that, it brings us to the end of another episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.